concerned with this. I figured out when I'm in a really good mood. I mood so well that people start to say, is it the too strong coffee or is he high or what's happening, right? Is when all my work for the day is done and I sit down here and I'm ready to go and I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah, you got me presenting, that's why.
Yes.
Right?
See, genius.
No, I gotta be honest, this is my favorite part of the day as well. Like all day long, it's grunt work, grunt work, grunt work, grunt work. And then it's all for this moment. This moment is what makes it all pay off.
Oh, there you go, okay. The rest of the day, we're making sausages. You know what? All right, anyways, so lots of news, as always, good stuff, disastrous stuff, so Casper.
Let's talk about the company Senator Joe Manchin likes to keep. So Senator Joe Manchin apparently has been meeting with a Trump supporting billionaire and he's been doing so regularly. In fact, the billionaire went on CNBC to talk about how they're homies, how he's encouraging Senator Joe Manchin to fight back against Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, which would improve Americans' lives with things like paid family leave, universal pre-K, do something finally about climate change. This billionaire's name is Nelson Peltz, and here's what he had to say about his special little relationship with Joe Manchin.
Senator Joe Manchin seems to be one of, if not the most powerful person in Washington these days, with all due respect, of course, to the president of the United States. Is that how you see it?
You are 100% right. Joe is the most important guy in DC.
Yes.
Maybe the most important guy in America today. He is keeping our elected officials somewhere in the middle. But I got to take my hat off to Joe, who's been an old friend of mine for 10 years. I call him every week and say, Joe, you're doing great. Stay tough. Stay tough, buddy. He's phenomenal.
So he's been doing great, he's phenomenal. I talk to him on a regular basis. Now, what is he referring to exactly? How exactly is Joe Manchin doing great? Well, Manchin, along with centrist Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Centrist, by the way, is a frustrating label to these corporate sellouts. But anyway, has been working to cut programs and costs out of Biden's so-called Build Back Better plan, which would spend hundreds of billions of dollars on social programs and the fight against climate change. The price tag for the plan was initially set at 3.5 trillion, but it is now pegged at around 1.5 to 1.9 trillion dollars. And let me just also note, as I covered in detail yesterday, the corporate tax increases that were proposed by Biden in that legislation have been cut out. So there will not be corporate tax increases. Biden also cut out the 2 years of free community college. He is not going to make the child tax credit permanent as he had promised. It will only last an additional year if the legislation passed. I mean, everything that actually mattered is now on the chopping block. And it's because Joe Manchin decided to hold the line in regard to refusing to vote in favor of the legislation. Same with Kyrsten Sinema. And we've talked in great detail, Cenk, about what's really motivating these people. It's not that they're honest actors who are fiscally conservative and genuinely concerned about the future of the country. It's because they're taking calls with these corporate donors, with these Trump supporting billionaires. I'll give you more details about this guy in just a second. And they're the ones who have more sway over their governing than we do as their constituents.
Yeah.
It's the fact of the matter.
So this guy is a billionaire. He works in Wall Street and he's a Republican. So we're gonna get into it more in a second. But even if you weren't any of those things, you've got what Professor Larry Lessig calls politicians leaning to the green. They lean to the green, right? So they do that in several different ways. One is corporate contributions and executive contributions to not just the candidates, but to super PACs and to dark money groups to funnel them millions of dollars. That alone would do it for them to lean to the green. That's basically legalized bribery. Then there's the personal financial interest. Joe Manchin did a little bit on the nose. He literally owns a coal company. As TYT has reported, he's made at least $5 million from that. His remaining assets in that company is worth at least another $5 million. So he leans to his own green. But usually the way that works is somebody like Peltz would make a implicit promise that if you're a good boy, Joe, and you hold up these tax increases, which will save me hundreds of millions of dollars, later I'll hire you for $2 million, $5 million, and it'll still be a bargain for me, okay? So that's the second way that they lean to the green. The third way that Professor Lessig talks about is just be in the room with them. Like you're influenced by the people that are around you. You're influenced by your family, friends, etc. Well, Joe Manchin, congressmen and senators like Joe Manchin constantly talk to incredibly wealthy people. So in their bubble, oh my God, he's a hero. All he's hearing all day long from billionaires is you're the most heroic man in America. Moderate, centrist. By the way, also the media, that's the other thing he hears. And the media is constantly telling him what a wonderful moderate and centrist he is, representing the middle of the country and the real Americans with his moderate stances. Now, of course, when we showed you the polling, that's not remotely true. And of course, the billionaires don't represent the actual voters, but that is all the different ways that these corporate politicians lean to the green.
It's kind of incredible how much things have changed since the 2012 general election, when Mitt Romney's tremendous wealth was not a positive thing. It was considered such a liability that he and his campaign went out of its way to pretend like he could really connect with the ordinary American, pretending like he's buying his button-down shirts in these 3-packs sold at Costco. I remember that was like a hilarious line from his campaign. In reality, I mean, it was a liability to him, but somehow things changed in the very next general election in 2016, when all of a sudden the country was convinced that a businessman, even though he was a failed businessman, would be better for the country. Now you have all these members of Congress flaunting their wealth, personally invested in individual stocks, personally invested in companies and other ventures. There are no laws against it. Just today, Senator Elizabeth Warren was talking about how federal officials should not be able to trade individual stocks. Okay, that's great. I respect Senator Warren, but what are you gonna do about it? Tweeting about it's great, I guess, but that's, in my opinion, at this point, nothing more than performative pandering to people who are incredibly frustrated. You're a US Senator, what are you guys gonna do about it?
Oh, and the answer is obviously nothing.
Nothing.
Because just yesterday, of course, the Voting Rights Act got voted down by the Republicans, even though they should have no say at all. They're not in the majority, but the Democrats value their Republican colleagues more than they value their voters. Because all of this, everything that you're seeing in the Biden administration is a public negotiation between the Democratic Party and its own donors. So which leads us back to Mr. Peltz over here. Let's find out a little bit more about him.
So Peltz, as Cenk mentioned earlier, is a Republican. In fact, he gave a tremendous amount of money to Donald Trump and was a huge supporter of Donald Trump's up until January 6th. So as CNBC writes, Peltz was previously a big supporter of President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, which led to his Florida home being a venue for one of the former commander-in-chief's 2020 re-election fundraisers. Tickets for that event, by the way, went up to over $580,000 per couple and was expected to raise $10 million for Trump's then joint fundraising committee that also helped raise cash for the Republican National Committee. Now, data from the Center for Responsive Politics shows that Peltz contributed, get this, over $200,000 to the Republican National Committee just during the 2020 election cycle. So that's the guy who's in Joe Manchin's ear on a regular basis. He brags about it on CNBC. And so when his constituents in West Virginia are wondering, why isn't Manchin listening to us? We overwhelmingly support the budget reconciliation bill. Why isn't he fighting for us? Because he's fighting for himself. He's fighting for that guy that you see in the image next to me, this Peltz guy who, I mean, again, he's a billionaire. His only priority here is to defeat the very legislation that would improve people's lives because he doesn't want to pay his fair share in taxes. He didn't become a billionaire by paying his fair share, right? Like, this is a guy who wants to game the system and continue gaming the system to his advantage. And they'll do anything and everything to make that happen.
Yeah, so it's funny because Trump had all the rhetoric about, the global elites and the big funders and bankers and controlling the whole world. Turns out he was taking $580,000 per couple from the global elite. You see what a fraud Donald Trump is? Now back to Manchin. So Peltz is in finance, and there's good guys in finance, and there's bad guys in finance, and Peltz looks to be
bad guys, though.
Okay, but Peltz looks to be. I read what their description of their company was. It's not definitive at all, but it sounded like they're more vulture capitalists. They look for companies that are down and out, and they pick them up and then do unspeakable things.
Such a productive member of society. What would we do without him?
But by the way, in the Wall Street circles, all those guys are considered demigods. If you're wealthy, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what you did to get that wealth. And to them, they're like, yeah, we're rescuing these companies by getting tons of debt and then putting that debt in our pocket. And then if they happen to miraculously survive, great. And if they go bankrupt, I already got the money and I already put it in my pocket, and everybody on CNBC applauds.
So what they do is they take out debt on behalf of the company, and then they pay themselves a tremendous amount of money. And if the company fails, who cares? They've already paid themselves.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that his company does this, because you'd have to have more details about it. But some of these private equity guys will literally say, okay, we're going to take out $2 billion on a giant company like Sears, right? And of the $2 billion, well, we have it now, so we're just going to put it in our bank account. And we're not going to spend it on Sears. And maybe we bought Sears for $500 million. So they already doubled their money. And then with the $1 billion, the $2 billion was supposed to be spent on Sears, but they don't spend it on it.
They don't. You mean they're not creating jobs and investing?
No, they're
in the
not creating anything. And in fact,
money.
Sears then starts to fall apart. A lot of people think that Circus City and Sears and Kmart all went under because of Amazon and the internet. No, they went under because of private equity guys that absolutely pillaged them and then left them to die. And so that is not something to be celebrated. That's a guy that talks to Joe Manchin every week.
Yeah, and by the way, Joe Manchin has other friends that you should be aware of. In fact, CNBC also reported that Manchin has been targeted by the influential libertarian, I love this, libertarian leaning, they're libertarian Koch network. Manchin's political operations saw massive corporate contributions in the third quarter, including checks from JP Morgan Chase, Duke Energy, Southern Nuclear Operating Company, UBS, Americas, and PG&E. Manchin's re-election committee finished the third quarter raising over $1.5 million. So he's definitely getting rewarded for his bad behavior.
Yeah, and if you remember, the one other guy who said they had regular weekly calls with him was the lobbyist for ExxonMobil. Any reporter treating Joe Manchin like he's a real honest actor is not a reporter. By the way, that is almost every mainstream media reporter. Every article talks about, oh, he's concerned about the debt and he's concerned about inflation, things he was never concerned about under Trump when we were giving away trillions of dollars to the rich. He voted no, but then didn't raise us think about the debt, didn't talk about it, didn't hold things up, didn't do any of that. And those reporters still write it dutifully. Oh, Joe Manchin is concerned about inflation. Dude, he's concerned about the checks he's getting from ExxonMobil and Peltz. It's the most obvious thing in the world if you can't see that. Reporting is literally the very worst job for you.
But he's not getting much pressure on the other side. I mean, the nonstop concessions that we're seeing from Biden, the weakness that we're seeing from Biden. Biden's really the one who deserves a lot of the criticism. Because he hasn't used any sticks. I mean, he's letting Manchin get away with all of this. Look, Manchin isn't immovable. We've talked about that so many times on this show. So yes, he's corrupt. He's acting based on self-interest, but he knows that there are no consequences to that, right? He's not expecting Joe Biden to act the way that Donald Trump would. I mean, think about how Donald Trump would handle this situation.
Oh my God, he would have obliterated the Republican senators who are opposed to him.
Exactly.
He would have said, oh, you're traitors to the great people of America. We're gonna have to get primary. I'm very disappointed in these senators, very disappointed. If somebody were to take their, get upset and go over to their office, I would certainly understand. He would say things like that.
I mean, look, he's still going after Mitch McConnell, who did Trump's bidding throughout his presidency. But Mitch McConnell spoke out just a little bit after January 6th, and Trump won't let it go, right? So look, Trump is a dangerous person, let's just put it that way. However, he's willing to fight for what he wants, whereas Biden's like, I don't know, how much more can I give Joe Manchin? What else can I give up for my own agenda? It's pathetic. Anyway, let's move on to other news. Police from Arizona State University are recommending charges for the 4 individuals who followed Senator Kyrsten Sinema into the bathroom to protest the fact that she is opposed to the passage of the budget reconciliation bill. These protesters wanted answers. They wanted an explanation for why she's doing this. And so as a result, police from Arizona State University, where Sinema teaches, are recommending that 4 people involved in the incident receive misdemeanor charges related to disruption of an educational institution and disorderly conduct. Neither charge is related to the law that bans recording someone in the bathroom. I want to remind you all of what that scene looked like, and then we'll discuss these proposed charges. Let's watch.
I'll be back.
Sinema, we want to talk to you real quick. Want to talk to you real quick?
Hi, actually, I am heading out.
But right now is a real moment that our people need in order for us to be able to talk about what's really happening. We need a Build Back Better plan right now.
We knocked on doors. We need solutions. The Build Back Better plan has the solutions that we need.
We knocked on doors for you to get you elected, and just how we got you elected, we can get you out of office if you don't support what you promised us.
Now, the law in Arizona indicates that you can't record someone when they don't know about it as they're, in the bathroom doing what they're doing. But clearly she's in a stall. I wasn't here when you guys covered this story, Cenk. I obviously saw the story and I had my own thoughts about it. But it's just fascinating how much rage there is toward these protesters who are just asking for a little bit of this lawmaker's consideration. The same consideration that she gives to her corporate donors, to American donors living abroad in Europe. She took a trip to Europe recently to hold her fundraiser there. Now, if there's money involved, she might lend you an ear. But if you happen to be a group of activists who want some answers, even if you happen to be an individual who did campaigning on her behalf to help her get elected, she's not interested in listening until there might be a little bit of money involved. And that's how the system works. So now these individuals might face some misdemeanor charges for what they did.
Yeah, so we just did a story about how this billionaire Peltz brags about how he talks to Joe Manchin every week. ExxonMobil lobbyist brags about how he talks to Joe Manchin every week. So Sinema, if you're a donor, you can get her at any time. In the middle of negotiations, she flew back to Arizona for what? A fundraiser. And then in the middle of the next set of negotiations, she flew to Paris for what? A fundraiser, right? So if you're a donor, talking to Manchin and Sinema is the easiest thing in the world. Okay, you just call them up and you say, hey, I have a check. They go, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, please, sir, I'm begging you, please. I'll talk to you for hours and hours, right? If you're a constituent, she's like, have them arrested. Have them arrested.
She referred to their behavior as not legitimate. Not legitimate, she said. And then she also said they deceptively entered a locked, secured building. It's a state university. What are you talking about?
That's absurd. Okay, yes, we can go to state universities. Where I know you hate the public, you despise the public, but a state university is the public university.
Right.
So
it's funded by
the taxpayers.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
us. That's them. The people who were there. On that day, we talked about how, of course, you shouldn't go to the bathroom. That's overstepping. I say, of course. Actually, John and others disagreed.
Interesting.
But yeah. But does that mean that you should be arrested and locked up when you politely ask questions? Yes, in the wrong place. But no. I tell you, don't go to people's homes. Don't go inside bathrooms. But the people are desperate to talk to their own so-called representatives. They will not talk to us under now penalty of law for us, not them. And so what are we supposed to do? Sinema will not listen to anything. By the way, people politely came up to her at the airport, or the airplane. They asked very gently. They gave heartbreaking stories about their own families.
She doesn't want to hear it.
She doesn't want to hear it. And she had the ring that said F off earlier, meant for her voters. And then but it's not who she is. She's not a tough guy. Because you can tell it when it's the donors, she's incredibly solicitous. All of a sudden, the tough guy act is gone. The same with Manchin. You remember the call that Manchin had with the donors. And he's like, oh, please get the Republicans to do the things that we need so we can all win. And
to give people the illusion of bipartisanship in the Senate, because he doesn't want to do away with the legislative filibuster in the Senate, because that would mean it would be far easier for Democrats to pass legislation that we desperately need to get passed. But to be honest with you, like really put this all in perspective, okay? Because this is a debate about civility. That's all this is. It's a debate about civility. And I get it, in a world where lawmakers are actually listening to their constituents and they're genuinely honest actors as opposed to self-interested narcissists who are just looking out for their own financial incentives, then yeah, maybe it goes too far. But while that visual that we showed you might seem uncivil, just take a moment to consider the lack of civility in watching people literally die due to poverty, right? When we talk about the budget reconciliation bill and the child tax credit, that child tax credit was supposed to lift 50% of children out of poverty, which doesn't even go far enough if you ask me. But Sinema and Manchin are like, nah. Even the 50% that we could lift out of poverty, let's keep them in poverty. I would argue that that's far less civil than what we saw on tape there.
And what the elites want, and definitely including the corporate media, is be civil to us. It is not going to be reciprocated.
Exactly.
Okay, so when we bomb little kids in Yemen, we're not awfully civil to them, but no one in media really cares. But oh my God, you did something wrong to a senator. I mean, you followed her to a place, arrest them. But well, how about the people who condone endless killing of civilians, the torture and all of those things, right? No. Those are the elites and they're above the law. And for the rest of you, we present to you the law, which now you realize it was never about justice. It was about protecting the powerful. The rules are never applied to them, they're only applied to us. That means it's not a justice system, it's a system to keep us in our place.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about how some who had been working for Senator Sinema are quitting, and we'll tell you the reasons why. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT's social break. I'm gonna start with Twitch tonight. Mouse in a dragon onesie wrote in, yay, 8 months of actual news. Thank you, we appreciate it. NDH 101 wrote in, thanks for the real news and keeping me sane, best news coverage available. Thank you again. Jay Sonatek wrote it, cheered 1,000 bits. I cheer you back. Thank you, all those make a difference. And I am kind of starting to flip on the Pocky Chip Challenge. I think Anna might yell at me, but so if we get to 7,000 subscribers at the end of the month, which is actually coming up, so we're probably gonna run out of time. So it doesn't look, I don't know if we're gonna make it or not. I haven't seen the latest numbers, but but I kind of want to try it now. All of a sudden I'm curious.
What, really?
Yeah.
What, but why?
Because I don't know, people are doing it, and then yeah,
if people jump off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff?
It's the easiest thing in the world. Anyway, all right, well, let's see what happens. If we get to 7,000 subscribers on Twitch, that's gonna happen. 6,200, Brett and others are gonna do it. That's also awesome. All right, we're going to members. Michelle Adante writes in, hi, Cenk and Anna, celebrating 18 months of TYT subscription. Am I a hero? I guess, no. I don't even guess, you definitely are. Look, you're doing your part to bring real news to people. We reach literally hundreds of millions of people every month. That's kind of cool, it's kind of badass, and you made that happen. So I think you're a hero. What's the antimatter writes in, they don't lean to the green. They dive in deep and bathe in the corruption. Not a lean exactly. Well, maybe they lean forward like MSNBC.
Dude, and look, let me just say, it's not even about being evil or not evil, although a case could be made that what they're doing is evil. But It's about incentives and disincentives. They're rational actors. They're rational actors.
Yes, 100%.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna walk away from $500,000 a year from dirty coal? You're not gonna walk away from that. Most people, I think I'd walk away from it. I don't really care, right? Because how do you look at yourself in the mirror? But a lot of people are gonna go for the money. So you really have to change the system and ensure that if you're gonna be a public servant, then you have to be a public servant. That means divesting from individual stocks and business ventures, period. But they're never gonna pass a law for that. We have to demand it.
100%. Power never concedes without demand. It's absolutely true. Left is Best wrote in, solidarity with all American progressives. Greetings from Western Australia. I love that we have members in Western Australia. RS King.
But not Eastern Australia.
No, Eastern Australia, we're very against. Although Northern Australia the other day on Ted Cruz, we didn't get to that story, but we're on board for Northern Australia.
100%.
Eastern, I have no idea where the cities, I have no idea about anything. I'm an ignorant American. All right, RS King Black Dragon says, I must have been in a coma for the last year. When did we elect Joe Manchin as president? Well, it's a good question, and it's a question Joe Biden should be asked, because apparently he doesn't realize it. Show some strength, man. We'll talk more about that later. All right, Peter Hamby on Super Chat with a haiku. Had some justice, Joel. Too strong coffee struck me like a thunderbolt. That's my favorite poem of all time, Peter. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Yes, Justice Jolt is a new flavor that you'll love. He also said so much to Manchin, knife bird from his backstab, Sen Sinema. Get it? We'll be back. Back on the Young Turks. Hey, Cenk and Anna with you guys. All right, more devastating stories about Democrats, later Republicans.
All right. 5 veterans who were serving on Senator Kyrsten Sinema's advisory council have stepped down from their posts after it turned out that Senator Sinema was a massive disappointment. These are individuals who had supported her, individuals who were working for her, but she has completely turned her backs on them and of course her own constituents. The veterans took Sinema to task for her refusal to abolish the filibuster and her opposition to parts of Mr. Biden's multi-trillion-dollar social safety net, education, climate, and tax plan, stances that have stymied some of his top priorities. So one of the individuals who signed on to this letter and also stepped down was featured in an ad against Sinema, and I want to show you what that looked like. This is Sylvia Gonzalez Andres.
Dear Senator Sinema, as members of your Veterans Advisory Council, we feel as though we are being used as window dressing for your own image and not to provide counsel on what's best for Arizonans. You've repeatedly ignored our feedback, urging you to act on 3 issues that support our veterans and protect the heart of our nation. We must protect voting rights by passing the Freedom to Vote Act. We are appalled by your failure to address this issue. You campaigned on lowering prescription drug prices, but now you're opposing the Build Back Better Act. Are you choosing to answer to big donors rather than Arizonans? You were a no-show on the vote to establish a commission to investigate the insurrection. These are not the actions of a maverick. As such, we respectfully resign from your Veterans Advisory Council. Sincerely, Sylvia Gonzalez Anders.
David Lucier. Rick Peters. Terry Arabic. Dana Allman.
Call on Senator Sinema to support the Build Back Better Act now.
I love that. Now, the letter that the veteran signed also said the following: you have become one of the principal obstacles to progress, answering to big donors rather than your own people. We shouldn't have to buy representation from you, and your failure to stand by your people and see their urgent needs is alarming.
Yeah, you know, I feel pretty good about one thing, and it's pretty significant. When we started talking about the donor money 20 years ago on TYT, everybody thought we were, in media, thought we were nuts. The viewers always believed in listeners, and I don't mean progressive viewers. Americans of all sorts have for a long time, over 90% have thought the donors were corrupting politicians, but we couldn't break through. There was a corporate media wall and so they would never ever discuss it. The wall's breaking, and so corporate media tear down that wall. Okay, and so it's leaking everywhere. You know, veterans who supported are talking about donors. Progressive media is talking about donors nonstop. Ryan Grimm goes on MSNBC, talks to Chris Hayes about it. All of a sudden, AOC is talking about donors. Jamal Bowman's talking about the donors. They're on CNN. All of a sudden, water's coming in from everywhere, and eventually, corporate media is going to have to go. All right, donors exist. All right, and maybe they affect the votes. Like, for you guys and for us, it's been the most obvious thing for 20 years. And by the way, I started Wolfpack 10 years ago. 10 years ago, because I was like, well, we can't get anything done. Because all they ever do is listen to the donors. If you don't get the money out, this is gonna happen. This, Sinema and Manchin.
Well, this is a good opportunity to tell people who might not know about Wolfpack what it is and what it's trying to accomplish, because there are efforts to get money out of politics. I think Wolfpack has the right strategy, although it is honestly the most challenging strategy, but it's the strategy that actually has lasting power.
Yeah, so that's the conventional wisdom, and I don't blame you for thinking that, but I actually think it's as hard as it is, it's the easiest strategy, the most doable strategy. So what is it? So I studied all of this legislation and why it failed for all the time that we were on the air for 10 straight years, and realized there's only one issue that decides everything else, and it's money. And so, well, if you want to get money out of politics, you have to basically go above the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has said in Citizens United and in other cases, no, corporations are human beings. They have unlimited free speech rights to talk to politicians, and they talk with money. And I'm not joking. Those are actual decisions by the Supreme Court. So the only way you can go above the Supreme Court is to change the Constitution. So how are you gonna amend the Constitution? Which, by the way, the Founding Fathers loved. They did it 10 times, 12 times actually, okay? And so you're supposed to amend the Constitution. Now all the media says, don't, that's radical, don't amend the Constitution. The Founding Fathers did. They wrote the Constitution and then amended it, right? So the problem is you can't do it through Congress, because Congress got into power through corruption. That's why later I helped start Justice Democrats, because we needed some honest politicians that didn't take corporate donor money. All right, now the other way though is in the Constitution. It's amazing. You don't have to go to Washington at all. If you just get 2/3 of the states to call for a convention, you could propose an amendment. No matter what, 3/4 of the states have to ratify it. That's why Anna says it's hard. Of course it's hard. But even if Congress proposed it, 3/4 of the states would have to ratify. But it's been done 27 times before. It's not like it can't be done, and it's much easier to go to the state level, where now Republicans are super mad about elections and Democrats are super mad about the way elections are funded. You get a convention, you propose these amendments. The elites hate it, but because it's the only realistic path to get the damn money out of politics, so that Manchin and Sinema and by the way, every Republican that are helping the corporate donors right now can stop. So go to wolf-pac.com to learn more. If you want to support them or volunteer, wolf-pac.com/go. It's their 10th anniversary just now, so there's a perfect time to participate and help. But one last thing, guys, it's a wonderful group of people. None of them are politicians, none of them are lobbyists. They're like literally nurses and mechanics, etc. It's the most wonderful group of patriots you'll ever see, and it's nonpartisan. Go check it out so we can actually regain our democracy. We've already won in 5 states, we can do this.
And just quickly going back to this story about the veterans on the advisory council stepping down. You know, the one other thing that gives me hope is that there is a lot better messaging coming out of activist groups. And I think that they're a lot more vocal, and just the ads that I'm seeing, to be honest with you, remind me of Republican ads. Republican ads don't hold back. They're pretty vicious and they attack pretty aggressively. For the longest time, at least as long as I've been doing the show, you see like this timid behavior on the left. But now it's like, no, we've got the resources necessary, we've got the messaging necessary, we're gonna put out these ads, we're gonna slap them in the face real hard until we get change. And that makes me happy. Like I'm seeing organizing now, both in regard to activists and on the labor side of things. That's giving me a little bit of optimism, and I'm not a very optimistic person. So
no, there's definitely optimism with labor movements, etc. Last thing is, speaking of veterans, first Republican to ever give a speech in favor of Wolfpack was in Vermont. And it was a state legislator who said, my son went to Iraq and died. My son didn't lose his life for freedom so that we could lose it over here. We're not going to be ruled by corporations. We're going to be ruled by the people. That was a Republican in Vermont. Vermont was the first state to pass it. And like I said, 4 others did it too. If you want to help, we'll put a link down in the description box, which you should always check for links. wolf-pack.com/go.
Well, the messaging on corruption continues in this next story, so let's discuss. Senator Bernie Sanders, along with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other activists, held a panel discussion on the budget reconciliation bill. Now, this is, of course, Biden's agenda, the Build Back Better agenda that includes all sorts of programs that are supposed to improve Americans' lives. Things like paid family leave, child tax credits, universal pre-K, funding for elder care, free community college, all of these programs that are now really in peril because of the fact that you have corporate Democrats in the Senate, like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, standing in the way. Now, in this panel discussion, the whole point was to express to Americans what the bill is all about. In fact, it's titled, What's in the Damn Bill? That's the name of the panel. And what I particularly enjoyed was the commentary and messaging in regard to what really motivates these corporate Democrats who are standing in the way. Let's watch a quick video with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
You and I, Bernie, have had a front seat at is just the intense presence of corporate lobbyists throughout the process of reconciliation in drafting the Build Back Better Act. They want you and everyone who's out here watching at home, they want you to give up before the deal is done. Because it's way easier for them to try to get away with the things that they're lobbying for and against if people at home aren't watching.
And that's exactly right. But the difference that I'm noticing is that people have had like a boot on their necks for such a long time. And the economic anxiety and the economic pressure that Americans have been facing, which has only been compounded by the pandemic, it's made them a lot more aware of what really fuels and motivates these corporate lawmakers, right? These Democrats who are standing in the way of programs that I think a lot of people are actually aware of, right? I mean, people have already been receiving the child tax credit deposits in their bank accounts. And that's gonna be taken away. It was supposed to be made permanent. But now, if we're lucky and the budget reconciliation bill gets passed, it'll last just another year, that's it. I mean, it's like Democrats love to lose. They won't do away with the Senate filibuster, which is necessary to do in order to pass the voting rights bill, which honestly it has to do with not just the future of elections, but the fate of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so look, good news, bad news, right? So the bad news is the same as always, which is, we've been talking about it all show. The reason I started Wolfpack 10 years ago was because if you don't get money out, you can't win on any of these issues. But it's not rhetorical, it's actually literal. So everybody's surprised. I don't know why you're surprised. Everybody talked about it. Did you think it wasn't gonna happen? So I'm just flummoxed by what, not progressives, but what Democrats in general thought was gonna happen. Even a lot of the establishment Democrats will say, oh, money's the most important issue, right? But why is it the most important issue? Because they give money to Sinema and Manchin, and Sinema and Manchin blocked the bill. And it's not just them, there's tons of corporate Democrats behind him. Just the other day, we're telling you about Robert Menendez, another Democratic senator from New Jersey. And he's like, oh, lowering drug prices, I don't want to do that. One of my top donors is drug companies. There's a whole bunch of conservative Democrats in the House who are like, no, we don't want to lower drug prices. They take tons of money from drug companies. We don't want to fight climate change. They take money from fossil fuel companies. So they're literally blocking the bill because they get bribed. What did you think was going to happen? This is what corruption looks like. And by the way, you're only seeing it because it's an intra-Democratic Party fight. And Democratic leadership has basically allowed corporate media to talk about this to some degree, right? Normally, there'd be no fight at all. The progressives would have been booted out. They would have been shamed and tarred and feathered. And all the Democratic leadership would have been like, no, of course, this is historic. They would have passed nothing. They would have passed flimsy bill and they would have called it historic, and everyone in corporate media would have said historic, they're gods, they're amazing, and back to the status quo. So now the good news is, look at this uprising. AOC, Bernie Sanders, they're like, oh, okay, media, you don't want to cover it? We'll do our own stream. People love them, and so they'll check it out, and they do, and we cover it. And all of a sudden, tons and tons of people see reality. And so now they're finally saying, yeah, guys, it's other Democrats. And yeah, it's their donors. And they never said that before. No one ever said it until really Justice Democrats. And so not even Bernie, to be honest, before Justice Democrats.
And by the way, now we're seeing outlets like the Wall Street Journal of all places do pretty good reporting on how the sausage is really made in Congress. And I love to see it. A story that was just published in the Wall Street Journal today about why Biden agreed to do away with the provision in his Build Back Better plan that would have provided 2 years of free community college. Because there's lobbying taking place by 4-year public and private universities that don't want that. So real quick, let me just read that to you. Lobbyists for public 4-year colleges have said states might redirect funding from their institutions. So they're worried about that. They're like, no, we want enrollment at our 4-year colleges. So those are public universities, right? But then what about private universities? Barbara Mystic, president of the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, which represents 4-year private institutions, said that free community college is untested federally and the program's bureaucracy, they always love to use that word. The program's bureaucracy would have to be built from scratch, okay? Whereas Pell Grants, that's what they're calling for. They're like, no. Why don't we just have more robust Pell Grants? Because they would potentially benefit from Pell Grants as well.
100%, because the money would go to them.
They want the money to go to them, that's all it is. So, and I was wondering, I'm like, wait, why did Biden preemptively decide to do away with 2 years of free community college? That wasn't even a provision that Manchin or Sinema was protesting against. And it has nothing to do with Manchin and Sinema. Manchin and Sinema are awful, okay? They're corrupt and they want to do away with tax increases for corporations, among other provisions. But there are other lobbyists at play as well. And so when we pretend as if Biden is like a warrior for his own agenda, he's not, he's clearly not. Because all he needs to do is listen to some of these lobbyists, get influenced by what they demand, and he'll preemptively cut these provisions out of the legislation, and there you have it.
Yeah.
Developed country that does not offer free college.
So guys, you're not, I'm just being honest with you. You're not gonna find out what the real news is unless you're watching either progressive media or listening to progressive politicians in a stream like that. So did you hear on cable news any of the news that Anna's talking about in regards to how other colleges are torpedoing efforts to get you free community college? No, you never hear that, right? And so in this case, for example, in West Virginia, did you know there's only 13,000 jobs in any way related to coal? And did you know that this bill alone creates 31,000 new jobs in West Virginia? That swamps the number of coal jobs in West Virginia. So but yet the corporate media says, well, Joe Manchin is concerned about jobs in West Virginia. Well, that's counterfactual, that's alternate reality, alternative facts. And as long as it's for corporate rule, mainstream media says yes. But no, progressives say no, and now there's a fight back. And I'll give you one last stat. Manchin keeps saying, we gotta do means testing, because I don't want the rich getting this child tax credit, for example. So we gotta cap it at $60,000. By the way, two people making $30,000 a year are not rich. Okay, they're not rich in LA, but they're also not even rich in West Virginia, okay? But did you know that the current legislation already has it capped at 150? So the rich were never gonna get the child tax credit. So Manchin is saying the middle class should get it, between 60,000 and 150,000. So Manchin is literally making an argument against the middle class. Did you ever hear that from anyone that isn't progressive? It's in the bill, these are facts. And so unfortunately, we got to do an end run, but fortunately we're doing it and they're doing it around the corporate media. Otherwise, you're hearing propaganda, you're not hearing reality. By the way, next time they should do that stream on TYT. Keep it real.
All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, apparently we're not the only ones who think that President Joe Biden is being incredibly weak. A host on CNN also has some thoughts. We'll share that video with you and more. Come right back.
All right, back on TYT. So a couple of quick programming notes. Power panel tomorrow, amazing panels. I love these. First hour is John, Francesca, and Nina Turner. And second hour is J.R. Jackson, Wozni Labre, and Farron Cousins. It's a progressive dream. And speaking of Nina Turner, we got Power Hour with her tonight. So right after the main show at 8 o'clock Eastern. Members get to see the hero of the week, the villain of the week. What would Nina do? Qualified immunity has run into a brick wall. How would she get past it? Some of her suggestions in previous episodes have been awesome. And we interact with the audience there as well. So tyt.com/join to become a member and get part of that, be part of that. All right, on Twitch, Dreamweaver Dragon cheered 300 bits, so thank you. DH says something that Anna might agree with. Cenk, please stop harping on how bad the MSM is. We know that, that's why we're here. We don't need to hear how bad they are. DH, I hear you, okay? But you're a veteran, okay? And you understand all this stuff. But our videos go to hundreds of millions of people. And not everybody knows what you know, right? And I wish they did. If everybody knew it, and I was like repeating 2 + 2 = 4, yeah, that'd be annoying, right? But we're yelling 2 + 2 = 4 because most people think it's 5 or 3. The right-wing media manufacturers doubt, the corporate media manufacturers consent. So that's why I'm trying to break through. And by the way, others have written in, to be fair to me, saying, I used to listen to them, but then when you guys make those points, you're right, I didn't realize how badly they were skewing the news. But anyways, I love that you're here, DH. Carolina.
Moderation, I'm just saying.
Moderation,
and okay. I agree with
you. Yeah, okay. All right, speaking of people who agree with Anna. Carolina Govia writes in, Anna, you're a beautiful ray of sunshine.
Aww.
Or you beautiful ray of sunshine.
Aww.
Loving your makeup today. Keep up all the amazing work you and your team do every day.
I'm doing a luster lip today, a light luster lip.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
A little different. Thank you for noticing.
Okay, great, God bless. I'm trying to get off it. Jake Fisher wrote in on Super Chat as well. If they can't pressure our representative, then why don't we pressure their owner donors? Jake, we're gonna do that. That's what tyt.com/change is about. We're gonna create a change machine and we're gonna figure out exactly how to do that. We're beginning to build it now. Marita Olguin writes in, anyone else think Cenk is super hot when he talks about corporate PAC money? Only me?
God.
Okay, LOL. I guess. All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, news forward.
Republicans blocked Democrats' efforts to pass an election reform bill. This is not the first time that this has happened. And the reason why it's able to happen, even though Democrats have a slim majority in the Senate, is because the legislative filibuster is still intact. Something that the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, could do away with if Democrats actually wanted to pass legislation. Now, none of this should be a surprise to anyone. And I'll give you some details about what we've experienced in the recent past in regard to the attempts to reform our elections. But before we do that, I want to give Don Lemon, of all people, some credit for a rant he had in regard to Joe Biden and his weakness. Let's watch.
Republicans and the former guy, mostly the Republicans who are in office right now, are going around the country and they are winning with a lie. They're able to get people on their side with a total lie, and Democrats can't get people motivated with the truth. I am going to get their attention. I'm going to make sure I have their attention. I'm going to tell them what is in the bill. I'm going to tell them what I'm selling. That is going to help them and everybody in red America and everybody in blue America and all Americans. I'm not just going to sit back and expect the news media to do it for me, because it's not our job to sell the narrative. It's our job to discuss what you are doing. And yes, part of what's in it, but it's not our job to sell your agenda for you. They are not selling their agenda. Democrats, get your butts in gear and get passionate about saving this damn country. You're not doing it. You're weak. You are weak. You are weak.
Look, Democrats are in fact weak, but that's not the full story, right? The Democrats who aren't really fighting to pass legislation that they desperately need is mostly due to corruption, money in politics, their own personal financial investments, both in individual stocks and other business ventures. There's all sorts of terrible things happening because the system is set up in a way to ensure that legislation that actually does improve your life doesn't really get passed, right? So I agree with some of what Don Lemon is saying there, especially in regard to Joe Biden. We're having a discussion about Joe Biden's agenda. And I don't really see him out there making a robust case for it. Not at all. I mean, where is Joe Biden? I mean, he's giving all sorts of carrots, all sorts of favors to the very corporate, corrupt Democrats in the Senate who are standing in the way of passing his so-called Build Back Better agenda. Like, he gave Joe Manchin's wife a job. He did that.
Yeah.
He keeps giving Joe Manchin all sorts of concessions. And has Joe Manchin committed to voting for the bill? No, he hasn't. Even with all the concessions that Biden recently made with cutting the most popular elements of that legislation.
Yeah, so guys, there's a number of indisputable facts here. So number one, Joe Biden did promise voting rights, and by the way, canceling some student debt, and we can go down the list of about a dozen things.
Reversing the Trump era tax cuts.
Right, so a dozen things that he promised and isn't even bothering to do. And then there's a super important dozen that he's kind of trying to do right now, but he's letting corporate Democrats block almost all of it. So that's a fact, there's no question about it. And I don't mind him giving carrots, like, so hey, I'll put your wife on some important board that no one else cares about, but you guys get to call yourselves elites in West Virginia and you walk around or go around on your yacht, no problem. But if you don't do what we want, then you gotta bring the sticks. But Joe Biden doesn't have any sticks. His whole history in the Senate is known as a guy who surrenders on negotiations. He gets the deal done because he goes in, usually to the Republicans, and go, what do you need? I'll give you 95% of it, and then we'll both brag about how historic it is. And so-
You guys, he ran and claimed that he would be the best president because he knows how to negotiate, not just to convince corporate Democrats to play along, but he tried to sell to the American people that he'd be the top negotiator in getting Republican lawmakers to play along. Now, in this context, Don Lemon's talking about Republicans, right? Because Republicans in the Senate were the ones who succeeded in blocking the voting rights bill. But I mean, Biden can't even get members of his own party to support his own agenda. Like, is he ever gonna be held accountable for that? That he lied and had like these delusions about how successful he would be in getting Democrats and Republicans to go along with what his agenda would be? Like, just let that sink in for a second.
No, I'm not kidding, and this is embarrassing, but I have to say it. If he wasn't lying about getting Republicans to play along with him, and I get it, lying's a harsh word, but it's political marketing. Like, oh, I'm running for office, Trump is so divisive, I'll say we're gonna unify the country. Obviously, Republicans will never vote for anything I say, but I'll say that I'll work with the Republicans until they then, of course, never give me a single vote, and then I'll give up on it. That's a political marketing trick, okay? I can live with that. But if he actually meant it, and he really thought he was gonna get these Republicans to give him votes on Democratic priorities, that's borderline unintelligent. That's devastating. Like, you can't, that means you don't know anything that's happening in Washington. You're the president. You don't know that the Republicans aren't gonna give you any votes? We said it ahead of time. You said you'd get them. We said there's no way you're gonna get any Republican votes. Who was right and who was wrong? So, a voting rights bill. They had a preposterous negotiation. By the way, it's not just Joe Biden. They're all in on this stupid game. Cory Booker wasting his time, wasting our time, having negotiations with Tim Scott on the Republican side about police reform. You thought the Republicans were gonna do real criminal justice reform, real police reform?
Cenk.
How could anybody be that stupid?
You know what Congress did pass last year? They didn't pass justice reform, criminal justice reform, they didn't do that. In fact, the police reform bill, they've dropped it. They're not gonna pass anything in that regard. But last year, Congress did manage to pass something that no one knew about, no one was paying attention to. I covered it on the show yesterday. They made it easier for local police departments to obtain militarized vehicles and weapons from the Pentagon, as long as they claim they're gonna use that equipment to fight back against climate change. So,
well, that'll.
I'm not even kidding.
Now, by the way, guys, that's Trumpian. Remember when Trump asked whether we could nuke a hurricane? So, I mean, how preposterously dumb is that? But how are you going to use tanks with local police departments to fight climate change?
But they need those weaponized tanks in order to save their constituents when they have extreme weather events.
Absurd.
And of course, they lie about that. They don't actually use the military equipment for that. They use it to intimidate protesters. They use it. They're using this military weaponry and these vehicles to serve warrants.
Now, it's playing dress up. It's so stupid. If you want to join the military, go join the military. But we're not the occupied people of America.
I know, but my point is, Congress has no problem passing that kind of legislation.
100% right. And what does Biden do? He goes and gives a speech the other day saying we should give more funding to the police. So that's indisputable fact number 2, which is that Joe Biden is conservative. He doesn't actually want to do any of these things. He thinks, well, I mean, it looks like this is the moment where progressives are a little bit more ascendant. I'll go a little bit half-heartedly go in that direction. But does he have passion to, like, I've got to pass this. My God, we got to do something about the planet. It's burning, and I'm the president. I'm going to be known as the guy who let the planet burn. No, he doesn't have any of that. He's just like, where do I get a deal? Well, who do I surrender to? He's confused as to who to surrender to, and they won't take this surrender. So now he's just floating in the wind, just totally clueless. But look, back to Don Lemon. I love that cable news is finally saying what we've been saying for 10, 20 years about the Democrats. Of course they're weak. They're paid by their donors to surrender. So weakness is built into the party. Why do you think just naturally all Republicans are strong and all Democrats are weak? Wait a minute, Lyndon Johnson wasn't weak, FDR wasn't weak, JFK wasn't weak. The only reason they're weak now is because the Supreme Court in 1978 legalized corporate donations given to politicians. And that's it. They're paid to lose. When are you gonna figure it out?
And look, the Democrats would need to get rid of the legislative filibuster, which requires 60 votes to pass legislation in the Senate. That's why Republicans are able to block their efforts, even though they have a slim majority in the Senate. They don't have 60 senators, they have 50 senators with Kamala Harris serving as the tie-breaking vote, right? That's what the legislative filibuster is essentially doing away with, because you would need 60 senators instead of 51. With that said, to your point about weakness, Cenk, this is Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, okay? I'm gonna read you his quote about this, And then I want you to think about what Mitch McConnell would do if he were still the Senate Majority Leader. He said this: "What we saw from Republicans today is not how the Senate is supposed to work."
Ooh, don't kill him, Chuck.
What is that? What is that? Why would you ever think that a single Republican, especially in this political climate, would want to vote with Democrats to strengthen our elections and to reform our elections? Republicans, state by state, are doing what they can to rig elections in their favor through gerrymandering, through voter suppression laws, all sorts of things. And is he asleep?
No.
He's not asleep. He knows. What is that garbage?
Okay, guys, I'm not kidding. I made up my mind. We're gonna get a national reporter in DC, and we're gonna get one in California, because California is so important. It's driving me crazy that there's no reporters here. So, and the reason is, somebody do some real tough journalism, okay? When Chuck Schumer says, okay, I can't believe the Republicans didn't vote for the voting rights bill, that's not how the Senate's supposed to work. There has to be a reporter that says, excuse me, Senator Schumer, are you an idiot? Name me 10 Republicans you thought were gonna vote for the voting rights bill. You can't name one. You can't possibly believe that, because we don't actually think Chuck Schumer's stupid. So, but don't patronize us and don't pretend like we're stupid. No, the problem is your party.
Yep.
You could end the filibuster tomorrow. And here's another indisputable fact. When you say that you are not going to end the filibuster, the Democratic Party says that. They're saying that in a best case scenario, that they view Senate traditions to be more important than their voters. They say, hey, look, my Republican colleagues want to block it, and I think they're more important than my voters. The parliamentarian wants to block things. I think the parliamentarian is more important than my voters. These are indisputable. I think Senate tradition, that's our best case scenario. No, it's not that I care about the Republicans, it's that my beloved Senate tradition, because we have tea and then we have crumpets, that's part of our tradition. And another part of it, we dress up in a certain way. And then another tradition is we have this filibuster that's almost always used to block voting rights for black people. And so that's part of our tradition. And I care about that tradition more than I care about our voters. Well, the message is delivered loud and clear. By the way, the next time you run for office, you idiot Democrats, it doesn't matter what you say.
Exactly.
Because no one will believe it.
Exactly, but honestly, Cenk, this goes beyond screwing over their own constituents. They're screwing over their own party's future, right? Because not only will they continue to fail to serve their constituents' interests, we're talking about the voting bill, like the election reform bill that mitigates the damage that's being done with all of these voter suppression bills on a state-by-state basis.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, great. But I just don't want to hear it from them. I don't want to hear the whining and the crying and the nonstop fundraising off of how terrible the Republican Party is. No party in this country emboldens the Republican Party more than the Democratic Party. They're doing it right now, and they're pretending as if they're the good guys and Republicans are the bad guys. They know that Republicans are the bad guys, but they enable it. And then they turn around and cry about it to fundraise. That's what this is about.
Paid to lose. So last thing, guys. And by the way, you want to help us hire a Washington correspondent and at California one, tyt.com/join. We'll hire right away, okay? As long as, and we always do things together. But all right, the last thing is a prediction. So now that people on mainstream media are calling Biden weak, my prediction is he's finally gonna bash someone. And is it gonna be Manchin or Sinema or Republicans? Hell no. He's gonna try to prove how tough he is by bashing progressives. Bank on it.
That's a given.
Okay, so, and he's partly doing it now in the negotiations. We had come down to 3.5 trillion. Manchin started at 1.5 trillion. Biden's saying to progressives now, you better take around 1.7 to 1.9. Well, that's almost Manchin's number. That's not anywhere near our number. And he's like, shut up and take it.
Yeah.
And so it's begun, and soon he'll come out on TV and start insulting progressives to show how strong he is. If he was actually strong, he would go after the donors, but he's not strong. So he will show his weakness by attacking the people who he thinks aren't actually powerful. And so that's how this game is played.
All right, that does it for our first hour. When we come back, Tucker Carlson is spewing lies about the 2020 election. We'll show you that video and more when we return. Don't miss it.
What's happening? I'm Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey right here on TYT. Let me tell you what we do on Indisputable. We go beyond the headline. We make sure that you know the full context of the story. And we also highlight issues that are important to the everyday person. We're talking about criminal justice reform. We're talking about the climate. We're talking about what's happening right in your local community. We also highlight very important issues that are affecting all of us, like the economy, jobs, and we engage in transparent debates with people who may not think like me. We're living in a current social atmosphere where opinions are represented as facts and lies are represented as truth. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it, and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
TYT, Cenk, Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. In fact, I'm gonna read one lovely comment here from our members. Anna O'Donnell wrote in, love Anna for giving my 11-year-old daughter an amazing role model to look up to. We watch you together every day.
That's awesome, thank you. I'm really glad that we're not cussing on the show anymore.
All right, well, and thank you for writing in with such a sweet comment. You guys keep us going, we love you. All right, Casper, what's next?
All right. I just want to quickly call out Cenk and John Iadarola for tweeting during the live show. I find it unacceptable, and I would like your undivided attention.
Well, you deserve it.
You know, just saying. All right, moving on. I just love, like the second, by the way, the second the camera goes to me, guys, this is Cenk.
No. By the way, to be fair to me, that is totally unfair. Totally unfair.
No, it's not.
Hold on.
It's accurate.
Have I tweeted during the live show? Yes. Did I just do it a second ago? Yes. Okay, but 90% of the time that I look at my phone, it's to research something that came to my mind while we were doing a story.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson attempted to rewrite history by lying to his viewers about the reality of the 2020 election, because guess what? It is the end of October, and we're still hearing about how the election was allegedly stolen from Donald Trump, even though there's overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Let's watch.
I mean, it was never an insurrection. It was a melee, and people got super exercised. I think there were some complicated components. There were clearly a lot of federal informants and or agents in that crowd. Their role is still unknown. We should find out. But in general, these are people who thought the election was stolen. They had some evidence to support that view. It was not a free and fair election. You don't have to believe that the voting machines were rigged to look at 2020 and say that wasn't fair. We changed the way that we vote. We did it by mail. Of course there was massive fraud. I mean, these are real concerns. Whether they swung the election, we can argue. But these people had a reason to be frustrated. Democracy, which they really believed in, turned out to be kind of fake.
What's the evidence? They believed that the election was stolen. They had evidence to support that view. What evidence? I'd like to see it, because if we're wrong, we should know about it. The only problem is we're not wrong, because there hasn't been a shred of evidence to indicate that there was widespread voter fraud or that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. In fact, what I think is incredibly embarrassing to Donald Trump and his enablers is the fact that we've now had how many audits in Georgia, how many recounts in states like Arizona. And every time it happens, oh wow, would you look at that? Not only was there no evidence of voter fraud, but it turns out that after doing a recount, Biden actually won dozens of more votes than we thought. Embarrassing. How many dozens of court battles did the Trump group need to engage in and lose for us to finally get off this topic? And listen, I had very little love for Hillary Clinton, but I find it hilarious that Republicans and Trump supporters kept claiming that Hillary Clinton didn't concede when she did in fact concede the next day. But they're not taking a second for a little bit of self-reflection, because it's now the end of October and they're still crying about how there was allegedly voter fraud. They're still not accepting the reality, and they're being enabled by Tucker Carlson, who knows full well that the election wasn't stolen.
Yeah, no, I gotta give him credit for this. He's an excellent gaslighter. And his art there is that he just says things as if they're true and that they're obviously true, but doesn't ever actually present evidence. So he said at one point in that little rant, and you can go rewind and see it for yourself again. He said, well, the election was fake. And he just went on, he said it in the middle of things. But wait, what do you mean it was fake? Fake how? You never explained how, you never gave evidence. He just says like that's a given. Everybody knows it's fake. And so then people who watch him are susceptible to that. They really genuinely believe, oh, I heard it somewhere, I saw it somewhere. No, everybody knows it was fake, right? And that's just a very small part of it. He said the mail-in ballots were new. That's not true. Not only did Trump do a mail-in ballot in 2020, he did one in 2016. He's got the pictures to show it, right? Mail-in ballots have been around forever. In fact, Republican voters used to do mail-in ballots more than Democratic voters. So, but
why aren't they doing that now, Cenk?
Yeah, because Trump thought that he was going to lose if they did mail-in ballots, so he started speaking against mail-in ballots, and then all of a sudden a new Republican conspiracy theory was born, and now Tucker Carlson speaks out against it, and on it goes. So. But he says it so matter-of-factly, who watching, if they're not a news expert, and if they're already either don't know politics or inclined in his direction, would think that he was lying. He said it so forcefully and
confidently.
And confidently. And he said, oh, this election obviously wasn't fair. But wait, why is it obvious? Why wasn't it fair? You lost 60 cases in a row. Every court that looked at it, every judge that looked at it, including every Republican judge and every Trump appointed judge, said you have zero evidence, zero. And Tucker Carlson knows that. That's why he's lying to you on purpose. So he said at one point, of course it was massive fraud. Massive fraud. He's like, I don't know that it affected the election. Wait, if it was massive, the election was decided by 43,000 votes in 3 states. You would imagine that it would have affected it. What do you mean, of course there was massive fraud? Well, if there was massive fraud, why didn't you present it in those 60 court cases, you schmucks? And again, if you're a conservative, I gotta ask you this. Are all of you the dumbest people alive? Why didn't you present your evidence in court? You had 60 shots at it. If you have all this amazing evidence, why didn't any of you ever bring it to court? You've got to be the dumbest people in America. You've got the evidence, it's sitting right there, and you won't use it. Or maybe you never had any evidence at all, and the whole time you've been listening to Tucker telling you, of course it's fraud, of course it's fake, of course it's new, of course it's different, of course Trump, of course this, of course that. And then finally, in that, we didn't show it in that clip, but in that segment, the number one thing they kept going back to was, why won't they just look into it? Okay, but we had 60 court cases, then we had recounts, then we had hand recounts, then in Georgia we had 3 recounts where they manually recounted every single vote. And then we had audits, and then we had audits done by your idiot right-wing companies, and every single one of them confirmed the same results and said Biden even won by more. And their answer is, but why don't you look into it? And if you're not paying attention and you're a normal right-wing schmuck listening to Tucker Carlson, you'll think, they see that? If they thought they were right, they'd look into it.
Yeah.
Because he hid the facts from you and said the rest of it matter-of-factly as if it was true. That's his trick.
So let's talk about our predictions. It's prediction time. Because
fun.
I've been thinking about what the outcome of all of this will be, right? So I think there are 2 possibilities, maybe both happen simultaneously. Number one, I feel like every general election now, it's a paradigm shift. Now everything will be contested. The Republican Party, if they lose, will refuse to accept the election results, and we're gonna go through this cycle over and over again. I do think that there's a huge possibility for more violence in the future if we continue on with these lies on right-wing media. But there's also the possibility that the Republican Party will be deeply harmed by this. Because if the American people, if Republican voters don't have faith in our elections, are they going to use the time and resources necessary to cast their ballots?
Yeah, Anna, that is almost certainly true. There's what they're going for the steal. Like they've basically given up, guys, because if you weren't going to try to end democracy, you would never tell your own voters that the elections are so fraudulent you shouldn't bother. And Trump right now is saying, don't even vote in 22 or 24. That's unbelievable. And he's saying, he's the leader of the Republican Party. And so already there's a poll out saying 9% of voters in Georgia, Republican voters in Georgia, say they're not gonna vote. Well, if in a purple state that now Democrats, it's sometimes Republicans win by a shade and sometimes Democrats win by a shade. If 9% of Republican voters don't show up, you're toast. So what are they doing? They would never do this if they didn't think they were already toast. They think they can never win national elections again. So now they're going for, let's just end democracy. Let's get everybody to question it so much that, and that's why all the talk about the Second Amendment, somebody's got to do something about it, take the law into your own hands.
A civil war,
violence, etc. So they're not, they know already that they're going to lose the elections. So they're getting you to question whether the elections are real. If they thought they were going to win the elections, they would never do that.
Yeah, but also at the same time, you have various states that have passed voter suppression laws that specifically target voters who typically vote Democratic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I genuinely, it's hard to come up with a prediction.
Yes.
Because there is some conflicting stuff going on.
No question.
All of it is terrible.
Yeah, and so Anna, you're absolutely right about that. So, but if you're gonna end democracy, how are you gonna do it, right? So you have to have enough votes one last time to change the rules. So for example, in Ohio, I happen to look into this. Everybody's supposed to do redistricting because of the census. Some schmuck wrote the law in Ohio so that Republicans and Democrats have to do it together. That makes sense, right? But then they put in a provision that said, oh, but if the Republicans, the state legislature, obviously controlled by the Republicans, wants to do it on their own, they can, but instead of lasting 10 years, it'll last 4 years. Who cares? The Republicans are saying, oh, yeah, then we're not gonna work with the Democrats. We'll just keep the redistricting. If you did it based on population, they have 15 districts left. And it would be roughly 8 to 7. The Republicans would win 8, maybe 9 at most, okay? The way they have it now, the Republicans are gonna win 12 seats because of the gerrymandering. And the idiot Democrats let them gerrymander it like that. Now they're gonna let them gerrymander it for another 4 years. Then the Republicans are gonna come back to the negotiating table and they'll probably pull a similar trick. So the idea is these Democrats are so stupid, they're politicians, and they're so weakened by constantly taking corporate donor money and doing whatever our bosses tell them to do. They're paid to lose. This is our chance. We get in, we change the rules, we end democracy, call any election we didn't win illegitimate, and we seize power. And it's a slow motion coup. It's happening right now.
All right, something to think about, help calm you down during the break. And when we come back, we have a feud between Representative Raskin and Gates on the House floor. It's an awesome moment, don't miss it. We'll be right back.
TYT, let's go to Twitch first again. Slammed in Cambered TTV wrote in, thank you TYT for always bringing the truth. Thank you for being a subscriber. Jay Sparks wrote in, woot. Mistress Dragon wrote in, guys, Anna is rocking it today, and threw in a heart emoji.
Thank you.
All right. I don't know what's going on with love for Anna today.
I don't know either, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was saying during the break, like, I don't know, I feel like today's one of my off days, but I guess not. So thank you for the love.
Apparently everybody thinks you're on. Okay, on. Parker writes in, Cenk, is there any possible way we can get one of those dream school guests on Old School, like Dr. Cornel West or Nina Turner? It'd be fire. I agree that it would be fire. We will now instantly look into it. We are of the people, by the people, for the people. So Parker, your wish is our command. I'm not saying it's gonna happen instantly, but I'll definitely try, okay? McMahon FR writes in, hey Cenk, here's $10 to pay for that DC reporter for TYT. I wish I could give more. I can't wait to see them get called on in a press conference. That's gonna be fun, isn't it? Okay, thank you for using Super Chat to do that. You could do tyt.com/go, or you could just become a member. You could hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Mr. Pink writes in, if Republicans were in charge, they would make an exception to the filibuster to make voter suppression federal law, no dissent in a heartbeat. Of course. All right, you're absolutely right. Matthew Koch says, decision to cancel free community college translates into a thumbs down for the student loan cancellation as well. Oh, no question. There's no way Joe Biden's gonna do that. Joe Biden also said he would reschedule marijuana from Schedule 1, which by the way actually doesn't accomplish anything. It's totally pointless, and he won't even do that. He won't even do that, because of course he didn't mean it. The corporate media told you that everything he said, he meant. We told you, most of the things Joe Biden says, he does not mean at all, and he will go back on. Who was right and who was wrong? Okay, facts matter. Dan Prohl says Schumer's up in 2022. AOC needs to announce a primary challenge now. Now, that's what Schumer was really worried about. That's why he's pretending to be a progressive. You've noticed he's beginning to stop pretending because AOC is running out of time to file a primary challenge. So now he's like, oh, it's probably not gonna happen. I can just go back to being a corporate stooge. What's the antimatter wrote in? I'm in support of a TYT hard question asking DC correspondent. Great idea. Yeah, well, guys, it's always a matter of resources. So yes, I would love to do it, and I think we can do it. Membership helps the most. Tarasota writes in, I love that Biden will get credit for whatever is left of the bill, yet progressives are, as usual, the only ones actually fighting for it. It's such a good point. We're like, Biden's fighting against us for his own bill, and then whenever scraps passes, they're like, Biden is a legend.
FDR.
I know. Cousin Vinny says, Anna, you look both glamorous and professional / ready to kick some ass. That necklace is beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Kate next wrote in, today I called the White House comment line and asked if Biden has a pair of cojones. I'll leave it at that. News, go.
All right. Well, there's a big update on the investigation into January 6th. So let's discuss what that update is. The House has voted in favor to charge Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's former advisor, who was fired from the administration in 2017, with contempt of Congress. Now, criminal contempt of Congress sounds like a very serious charge, but the likelihood of spending any time behind bars is incredibly slim. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But before they had that vote, there was an interesting moment between Representative Jamie Raskin and Representative Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, of course, wanted to defend his buddy Steve Bannon, which led to things getting pretty heated between the two lawmakers. Let's watch.
Legally speaking, there was no election fraud or no election corruption. But let's put it this way. Do you agree that 61 different federal and state courts, including 8 judges that Donald Trump appointed himself to the federal bench, have rejected every claim of electoral corruption or fraud that have been advanced? Do you agree with that?
I don't, and the reason is those claims are not evaluated because in many of the circumstances you reference, jurisdiction was the principal question. So I think it requires a review of the procedure.
Do you have any case authority in the land of those 61 cases or any other cases where a court has determined that there was electoral corruption or electoral fraud that materially affected the outcome of the election in any state in the union?
No court.
Do you have one?
Which I believe is a real failure of the judiciary. I think the Article 3 courts failed our country by not exercising more jurisdiction over those questions. Now, there's a difference in whether or not fraud existed and whether or not there's an adequate remedy. And I think also a number of those cases were kicked on remedies.
No court has said that fraud existed, and so there's no remedy because there's no violation, Mr. Gaetz.
Right, but you cannot.
There's no violation, there's no fraud.
That there was no fraud if they didn't take up the question and review the facts on jurisdiction or remedy.
You know what? That might work on Steve Bannon's podcast, but that's not going to work in the Rules Committee of the United States House of Representatives. I'm sorry, Mr. Gaetz, forgive me.
Yeah, let's see more of that from the Democratic Party, not just in regard to Donald Trump and his cronies, but in regard to actually fighting for legislation that would materially benefit Americans' lives. But I did really appreciate that moment because everything Raskin said there was true. And let's be very clear, in case after case, in court battle after court battle, the federal judges, including federal judges who were appointed by Donald Trump, were like, hey, all right, can you guys present your evidence for voter fraud? And in one situation after the next, we have no evidence, not a shred of evidence. Even after telling the American people in Fox News interviews and Newsmax interviews and OAN interviews that they've got all this overwhelming evidence, they have failed to show a shred of it because it doesn't exist. So the fact that we're still talking about this blows my mind.
Yeah, so that was near perfect. Actually, I have one thing to add to what Raskin said. Let's note for the record, by the way, Raskin is one of the most progressive members of Congress and also one of the smartest and very practical. Now, in that line of questioning, he did something that every Democrat should say. And finally, it was so good to see it. They lost 61 times. You lost 61 times. So where's your evidence? In all of those cases, you never presented any evidence because you don't have any evidence. And he said, not only did you lose every single time, can you name one court, including all those Trump-appointed judges, that said, here is a piece of evidence, one piece of evidence that there was fraud? Can't name one. because there weren't any. Now, I wish he'd handled the jurisdiction part a little bit better. So this is a fallback thing that conservatives do. All the courts rule just on jurisdiction. That's not at all true. So it's true in the Supreme Court, but in the majority of the cases, they actually ruled on whether there was fraud or not. So it's just a lie. But even on the Supreme Court, the reason they don't have jurisdiction is because Trump would have a case to go in front of the Supreme Court. Remember Bush v. Gore? They had jurisdiction there because Bush and Gore went to the Supreme Court and said, this obviously affects me. And so Trump could have done that. Trump didn't do that because he didn't have any evidence. So he goes to court and says, now I don't have any evidence, but I think it affects me. And the court's like, no, you don't get jurisdiction by not presenting any evidence. You were not affected. Another great line that Raskin had, which is absolutely true, is the reason there was no remedy is because there was no fraud. What am I supposed to, in a court case, you go, hey, here's the problem, and here's why you should compensate me. Whether it's money or redoing of election or whatever it might be, right? Well, you never answer the question of the problem. Like you never said, oh, here is the problem, like the crime or fraud or rigging that happened. So how could give you a remedy on a problem that doesn't exist? You guys, I don't know, maybe if some of you are right wing, just for God's sake, read something other than right wing media. They're literally lying to you. Read any other article, pick them, okay? Go and forget the articles. Go and read the actual Trump judges, Trump appointed judges, their decisions, where they say, for God's sake, aren't you gonna present one piece of evidence? No, then get the hell out of my court.
And look, I mean, since Biden won, I think everyone forgot about everything that transpired in the lead up to the election. I mean, Donald Trump had so many different things going in his favor, right? You have a Trump loyalist in charge of the post office, essentially doing away with some of the machines necessary to go through the ballots, right? Because there was an influx of mail-in ballots, and in order to have the capability to process all of them, you would need the machines, and the machines were taken out of commission. And then in the last minute, Louis DeJoy, who again, Trump loyalist, who's the head of the post office, even today, by the way, I don't know why Biden hasn't done away with him. It's insane, but he was forced to make them operate again, but it was in the last minute. I mean, all of the disinformation coming from the Trump campaign in regard to the election and the mail-in ballots and everything that was happening, all that stuff. I was convinced that Trump was gonna steal the election because of all the shenanigans he was engaging in. But even with all of that, even with that upper hand, Trump lost. And he lost because of COVID. Let's keep it real. He lost because of his handling of COVID. And the fact that he and his enablers refuse to accept that and admit that is infuriating because of what it's doing to rip the country apart. I mean, Trump inciting what happened on January 6th, claiming that he was gonna go with those people to the Capitol building to demand taking the election results back. And then he turns around and goes to the White House while all those people face federal charges. Please wake up. Understand that you're being used you're as pawns, okay? You're being used as a tool to help these goons, accumulate power, but not for you, not to actually improve anyone's lives, but for them, power for power's sake, to enrich themselves.
There's one other piece of great irony there by Matt Gaetz. When Raskin said, well, none of the courts thought you had any evidence, including the Republican appointed judges. Matt Gaetz says, well, that proves that it's the failure of the judiciary. No, because you lost doesn't mean they failed. It means you failed. I mean, look at that circular reasoning.
Yeah.
If we present no evidence and the judiciary says we presented no evidence, obviously the judiciary must be wrong. So we now have to change the courts because they have failed, because they're now relying on evidence, and obviously they shouldn't.
So I want to go to one more clip from their exchange, because once Matt Gaetz realized that his hollow arguments weren't really going over so well, he resorted to irrelevant attacks.
President Trump asserted executive privilege for McGahn. President Biden has not asserted.
I believe there is.
Has not asserted executive privilege.
President Trump has initiated litigation. Look, the reason you all waited on McGahn is because the Russia hoax wasn't going well for you, and the reason you're not waiting now is because you have no other legislation or other solutions for the country.
All right,
that's why
Mr. Jordan, let me switch.
You had the McGahn playbook, but you've ditched it because you guys need January 6th so bad.
All right, so let me fill in the blanks on that, because what Steve Bannon cited for his reasoning in just refusing to go along with the subpoena. He was subpoenaed by this panel as part of the investigation into January 6th. He ignored it. He ignored the subpoena, which is why now he's being charged with criminal contempt of Congress. Now he claimed, well, I mean, executive privilege, right? Except Bannon wasn't working for the White House at the time. Trump isn't president right now. And remember, Bannon got fired in 2017. So this doesn't extend to executive privilege. And that was what they were debating there. Matt Gaetz wanted to argue that Don McGahn was protected under executive privilege, but Don McGahn was working for the Trump White House during the Trump administration.
And once again, with circular reasoning. So Gaetz says, you guys just want a distraction. And of course, all you have to say is the magic word Russia, and a huge chunk of this country, including some small sliver of the left, instantly turn off their minds. They go, oh, he said the word Russia. Now everything the Democrats are doing are a hoax. I hate Democrats. The word Russia was like, it's a Pavlovian reaction now, right? And so ironically, that is the distraction. And he's saying, oh, you guys are doing a distraction because you can't pass legislation that we're blocking. Okay, well, there's an easy fix to that. You stop blocking it, and then we'll pass the legislation, and everything will be fine, right? Then we won't need the distractions. No, you guys broke the law in January 6th. Your supporters did, right? And we want to see, who did what in that instance. You're saying, do not investigate law breaking because it would be a distraction from the way that we're blocking your agenda. How is that for circular reasoning and not complete nonsense? That's why Raskin was like, blah, 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 here they go again. They always throw out the squirrels when they get caught. Oh, we had no evidence of fraud at all. We're all serial pathological liars. Here's a bag full of squirrels. They're flying everywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
McGahn, Russia, hoax, fake. Blah, okay.
No, it's an endless inventory of squirrels. I don't know where they get all the squirrels from, but they're always prepared with squirrels. It's all you get, both with right-wing lawmakers and right-wing media. Constant, I mean, that's the reason why they immediately resort to things like Mr. Potato Head or Dr. Seuss or whatever the next distraction is meant to be. In this case, Russia is a perfect distraction to very real accusations against Steve Bannon and his role in what happened on January 6th.
It's a hilarious example you gave and shows how deeply ironic Gaetz is. You guys are just doing distractions so that we're not talking about the real issues like Dr. Seuss. Wait, what?
Anyway, all right, why don't we take our last break? When we come back, Steve Crowder is dying for attention, as he typically is, hasn't been getting it from his daddy, so fine, we'll give it to him. His pretty terrible comments about a local reporter in San Francisco, and more when we return.
Squirrel. Back during the break here. AMA is coming up. That's next Tuesday. So if you're a member, make sure you go to the community tab on YouTube and ask us apparently anything. We answer a ton of questions from you guys. That's for the members. That's next Tuesday. So tyt.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. Then go to the community tab to give in your questions. Power Hour with Nina Turner in about 20-25 minutes. So stay right here. Who's our hero of the week, the villain of the week, and what would she do with some of the issues that we're having in Congress. And then after Power Hour is going to be a deep dive with Jordan Ewell. So that's at 6 o'clock Eastern, and that is on twitch.tv/TYT. Taylor Wall writes in the member section, Matt Gaetz is really truly competing effectively against Ted Cruz for most odious politician in America. Well, congratulations to him. I think that's true, and good luck to him on it. Progressive Palestinian wrote in, dream old school, Johnny Pie, Casper the Friendly Host, and the Vig. Hey, I guess Cenk and Ben would also be acceptable. The Vig makes it dream old school, huh?
I really enjoyed this week's Old School. I watched live while cooking, and it was good. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. It was with Schuster and JR. So if you're a member, you'll love it. TYT.com/join to become a member and check out all the old schools. Okay, Celtic77 writes in the super chat. For a while now, I've thought the only reason Trump went into politics is to cause chaos, regardless of the party he picked. He's the Joker. He just wants to watch the world burn, and he's not the only one. That's true. He's not the only one, and that's an excellent analogy. In fact, if you haven't watched it yet, it's a disturbing movie, but it's really good in my opinion. Watch The Last Joker, that Joaquin Phoenix, where Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker. I actually think he is Trump in that movie. But in the beginning, you kind of root for him, and at the end, you see the disaster that leads. It's got a lot of political messages in there, and it's very nuanced. So check it out. I think you'll like it.
I think the message is that communism sucks. Sorry, that was a reference to Tim Pool, who's an idiot.
Yeah, you watch Squid Games, any of you see Squid Games? I'm not gonna give anything away. Tim Pool says, oh, Squid Games, that was about how communism sucks.
Wrong.
It was the exact opposite.
Wrong again, Bob.
It was the exact opposite. They're amazing. Their lack of intelligence knows no bounds. Nerd Girl Dragon says on Super Chat, Bannon has said he wants shock troops to ready to take power after the next election. This is why Trump doesn't care about voting. Absolutely, if Trump wins again, boom, they're gonna change the rules. They got their shock troops. We're done for. I'm not exaggerating. It's not hyperbole. That is my absolute opinion. Renato Herrera says, here's $100 to get that TYT reporter. I was wondering why one of you didn't go to DC to hold them accountable before. Of course, it's always Zamane Lebowski. So thank you. You're awesome for doing that. You could also give it TYT.com/go. I think that still works. And TYT.com/join to become a member, of course. And Cindy Lou just cheered 200 bits on Twitch. You guys are awesome. Thank you. All right, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. We'll see you in a second. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Let's see if I get mad and how mad I get in the next story. So that'll be fun to watch for.
All right. Steve Crowder, who notoriously ran away from a debate featuring Sam Seder on his own show, has some thoughts about the appearances and the identities of other people. Now, while talking about an In-N-Out fast food restaurant in San Francisco, essentially fighting back against San Francisco's vaccine mandate, he decided to comment on the appearance of a local reporter who was reporting on that story. So let's watch the video, see what he had to say.
San Francisco In-N-Out, they've been in a battle with the city over, let me just let them tell you the story, vaccine requirements.
Brian, right now, this Fisherman's Wharf
aggressively Asian face
is open, but only
it is
for to-go orders. Take a look at that sign on the door. It says indoor dining is unavailable at this time, and that's because the city's Department of Public Health said In-N-Out is not complying with its health order to check for proof of vaccination from customers. It was not denying entry to those without proper documentation. Now, the city confirmed it closed this location temporarily last Thursday. In-N-Out said said
the city
that while
confirmed that it
posted
closed a
signage
private
to
business
display
for not
local
acting
health
like the health,
requirements,
for not acting like the
it would not
FDA.
comply with what it called the requirement to act as the vaccination police.
By the way, the reason I say this is because usually with the reporters, they're kind of Americanized Asian, so I think it's a good thing.
No, it's fantastic.
Culture. It's a good thing. It's full Asian. It's good.
That's a good thing.
I wish she would have kept her fan.
Yeah, a little bit of dancing. Well, look, it looks hot.
That's
it looks
her
like
last
it's
name,
hot.
Yeah, that's right.
But here's the
I'm
thing.
Wong Geisha.
All right, so the reporter is from KPIX5, CBS television, and her name is Betty Yu. Cenk, I know you have strong feelings about this.
Yeah. I know right-wingers love to say like, oh, offensive jokes, they're just jokes. And so what are you guys getting upset about? Well, then I guess you probably don't mind if it goes both ways, right? Right-wingers have stupid white faces, really stupid white faces. It's just a joke though, I'm just kidding around though. I mean.
No, but it's a good thing, Cenk, because typically they do like half stupid faces, but it's really good to see that they allow themselves to do full stupid faces.
Yeah.
Right? We're saying positive things about their stupid faces.
No, yeah, and if you're gonna go stupid face, stupid white face as a right winger, that's perfect right there. Full stupid white face.
Super happy to see him embracing his full stupidity.
Yeah, so when I see right wingers, all I see is stupid white face, but of course I'm just kidding around. I'm kidding around. You guys are probably smart. I mean, so here, let's show you another one that might fit the bill here. A guy who usually does this. Let's see Tucker, okay? So what does it mean to be aggressively Asian? What if somebody's face is aggressively Asian? Okay, so see, there you go. There's a stupid white face, because all right wingers have stupid white faces, but we're just kidding. It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype of how dumb right wingers are, but joking around about stereotypes is no big deal because you all know you're Neanderthals, and we're just joking though. We're just joking about how stupid you all are. We're just joking, so I know you don't mind. Okay, so the reason I do that, guys, is because they think a joke about your ethnicity and your face when you're different than white is no big deal because it isn't about us. It's about you. We get to do these stereotypes about you and you have no power. And then all of our stupid, now this is real, our stupid viewers will think, oh yeah, Asians, Asians, look at their Asian face. What the hell what does that mean? What does that mean?
He specifically said aggressively Asian face. I don't like what.
No, because to them, Asians are the other, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so white is normal, but like, wow, you look really Asian. That's even worse. But he says, of course, he realizes he stepped in it and he needs plausible deniability. So he says, oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to go full Asian. I don't know if you know this. Asians are full Asian, so they're not going full Asian. They are Asian. Like as if like, oh, okay, we'll let you. Go ahead, go full Asian, go ahead, all right? Oh, well, thank you for your goddamn permission, right? So, look, and then he said something about her face being a black diamond.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's like some racist trope about about the flatness of the face. Of course it is. God damn it, you guys are so racist. So look, just like my main request of right wingers and their stupid white faces, just kidding, is just own up to your racism. It's not a big deal, guys. We're not taking your speech rights away. No, but I'm not saying take Crowder off of YouTube. I don't know if others are, but I'm not saying it. He gets to be stupid whiteface all day long, okay? But just say, look, okay, guys, we don't like Asians. We think they look funny. They look funny because they're not us, so they look funny. Right? Okay, good, then you're a racist, then it's okay, You just say you're a racist and let's move on, okay? But don't come here and tell us that Asians look funny with their aggressively Asian face and then tell us that you're not racist. That's the definition of racism. Look at how they look. Are you kidding me? And then of course it always gets worse because this stupid sideshow Bob, I don't know his name at all, comes in with, oh, she's like a geisha, the only thing that's missing is the fan. Okay, now geishas are not prostitutes, but in American stereotypes, they are dumb right wingers have characterized geishas as Asian prostitutes. And so their immediate reference to a reporter is, oh, she's Asian, so she must be a prostitute. Nah, no, you racist piece of craps. I don't care how much you cry. I want you to cry all night tonight, okay? But you are definitely racist. You're a hateful person who does not care about other human beings at all. You're maniacally obsessed with your racism. White is good. Asians are different. Blacks are different. Mexicans are different. Muslims are different. Muslims are violent. Asians have flat faces and are whores. And this, and then blacks are stupid and violent. Why do you think we can't stand you? We can't stand you because you hate us. And we're tired of you hating us. We're exhausted from it. So my wife is Asian, I'm Muslim. All we've ever gotten is right-wing hate. Okay, so and what do they say about Muslims all the time? Oh, they're violent, they're violent. No, you guys as in right-wing whites, it is a fact. You did the Holocaust. You did World War I, you did World War II, you did the Crusades, you did the oppression and the subjugation of the entire Southern Hemisphere. So don't come telling any other race who's violent and who is not violent. Don't come to us with any of your stupid racism. Now my kids are Asian. You gonna say something about their face?
Yeah, he will.
Okay, well they do because they don't think we're human. They don't care about us. Oh, I'm hurting your kids? Who cares they're Asian, right? Well, I don't care about you. I don't care about you, okay? I think you're a terrible person. So Steven Crowder, you're not funny. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. There's plenty of Asian comedians that make plenty of jokes about Asians. It's not, nobody's banning jokes about Asians. It isn't a joke. You're just saying, haha, look at her face. We don't like Asian faces. That's because you're a goddamn racist. And your stupid sidekick is the most racist person I've ever seen.
I mean, it goes beyond that though. Like I've gotten past allowing them to get under my skin because when you really take a look at Steve Crowder, I mean, the guy had to go on leave after he was humiliated by Sam Seder on his own show. The poor boy was hospitalized.
Oh,
okay,
Jesus.
You
want to talk about stupid?
He's a guy who wears a gun holster on his show.
Pathetic. How small is your penis? Jesus Christ.
But seriously, just think about this for a second. Because in saying insulting things about various minorities, he gives the impression that he thinks he's better than other people. But really think about what Steven Crowder thinks about himself, right? He's a deeply insecure little boy who still has his father calling the shots in his own personal life, in what he can and can't do in his own career. It's real sad. He clearly enjoys dressing like a woman, which I don't think there's anything wrong with, but he'll find like ridiculous excuses to do it. And at the same time, like everything he does, it's just spewing out of him. Like you could see it, just desperately trying to appease his daddy. Boy's got daddy issues. He's deeply insecure. He thinks that lifting weights is gonna make people think that he's like a tough guy, but he doesn't carry himself as a tough guy or a secure guy or anyone to admire in any way, shape, or form. He's sad, he's pathetic. He embarrassed himself time and time again, and he'll continue to do it. So I see his commentary about other people as an attempt to deflect from the fact that he's a small person. And he will remain a small person because he has no interest in improving himself or standing up for himself or doing more for society other than trying to conceal the fact that he's just a sad guy.
Okay, no, I'm done appeasing the right wing in terms of like, we never appease them, right? But the media gets mad at us when we call them stupid, and other people get mad at us when we call them stupid. And so that's what I mean. I'm done with it. Look, you guys are less intelligent than us. If you think that people act certain ways because of their race, and you think that, oh, I'll make other people laugh at others for their face, for their ethnicity, for their race, etc. And you think that that's actually how humans behave. Oh, white people are smart and black people are dumb and all these other stereotypes you have, and Asian people do this and this and all the other stereotypes you have. Those stereotypes are literally unintelligent. It's the refuge of people who are not bright. So they can't tell, they're confused, they're lost in a world. And they're like, I don't know what the hell's going on, I'm blind. Is it God, is it this, is it race? I don't know anything. I'm so stupid. Oh, I know, I'll say it's race. And when Crowder says it and Tucker Carlson says it and every right-wing commentator is a racist, every one of them. I've never seen them not be racist. And all their fans are like, yes, racism, it's so funny. Well, that is, other than being hateful, it is literally unintelligent. And if you want to cry about that, this is when I invite you to cry all day and all night long. I don't care about your stupid little racist feelings. You're stupid. Done.
Speaking of stupid, let's talk about Rick Wiles. So Rick Wiles is a right-wing talk show host, and he's also a staunch anti-vaxxer who has a pretty unique theory on what the coronavirus vaccine allegedly does. Let's watch.
This is a global coup d'etat by the most evil cabal of people on the planet in the history of mankind. And if it is not stopped in the very near future, they will win. That's what's at stake, control of the world. They're putting eggs in people's bodies. If you didn't see yesterday's True News, you need to watch it. It's an egg that hatches into a synthetic parasite and grows inside your body. This is like a sci-fi nightmare, and it's happening in front of us.
I think the nightmare that's happening in front of us is you. People like that guy.
Yeah, I'm not amused anymore. Look, I know it's funny that he's making up this lunatic conspiracy theory about how the vaccine is going to put a parasite in you or it's going to grow into an egg and all this insanity, right? But look, guys, we baby these Christian fundamentalists.
Do we?
No, are you kidding me? The media would never criticize anything that calls itself Christian at all. Like, do you think CNN's gonna rip into that guy? No way, no way. It'll offend the Christians. It'll offend the right-wing Christians. We can't do it. And they kiss their ass. The guy's a lunatic. If you believe any of that, you are a stupid person. You are insane. We have to actually say things that are true because we're not breaking through. We're not breaking through. When we play patty cakes with them, when we treat them like legitimate people, people go, I can't tell. Maybe there's a debate. All the world scientists say that the vaccine saves your life, but this idiot who calls himself a Christian says it plants a baby inside you or an egg or whatever the hell it does, and then it probably turns into a dragon. I can't tell, 50-50, 50-50. It's not 50-50. If you believe that guy, you're a stupid person. Stupid. And
I'm sure that'll persuade them.
Yes, okay, I don't care. No,
I
look,
get it.
guys, there's two different things, okay? There is now the Democratic Party that has a whole host of problems. It's got corruption and corporate issues, et cetera, right? And now we have the right wing in this country who is avowedly the anti-facts, anti-science, anti-doctors, anti-health, anti-intelligence party, but they chose it. I didn't choose it. I used to be a Republican. So I would have liked the Republicans to remain to a normal party with normal level of intelligence. Instead, they've chosen to go down this path where they say, no, we want to believe things that aren't remotely true, that couldn't possibly be true. No intelligent person would ever believe. I'm not going to baby you. I'm not going to baby you. That guy's a lunatic. If you believe him, you're a lunatic. And it's obvious. It's obvious to the rest of us. So nothing else works. Snap out of it. Snap out of it before you ruin your life.
Okay, so I gotta read you these graphics because they're amazing. So Rick Wiles, the guy that you saw in the video, is also a preacher at a Florida church. Who cares about that? He's openly advocated anti-vaccine propaganda. He was hospitalized in June after contracting coronavirus.
Of course he was.
He was infected just weeks after he said he would not be taking any of the available vaccines as they were being used to commit genocide, he claimed. By the way, 725,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus. So if you're worried about people dying, maybe the unvaccinated status of people who might follow clowns like this guy should be the top concern. By the way, this is my favorite part. He also said that vaccines would wipe out stupid people.
Yeah. Well, how is that for deeply ironic? Edwin made a good point while watching the video. He characterized it like a parasite. Well, what do you take for parasites? Ivermectin. mean, these guys, they're unbelievable. And so probably all the Joe Rogan fans will be, oh yeah, the vaccine puts an egg in your. Jimmy Dore fans, oh, yeah, vaccinations suck. Oh, vaccinations terrible. Oh, the dragon's gonna come out. Oh, and they're all gonna be for John Iadarola. Oh, okay, fuck. Lunatics.
Is John behind the conspiracy?
Think about it. No, and if you're a religious zealot like that, I don't care that you call yourself Christian. You're wrong. You make no sense at all. And the rest of us think that you're playing Dungeons and Dragons in your basement. You sound like an absolute lunatic when you believe things like that, okay? So don't baby the religious people anymore who are extremists like this guy. Don't baby the right wing. Just tell them what reality is. And we're not gonna sit here and debate you guys. You're morons. The scientists know better than you. If you don't realize that scientists are right and stupid preachers are wrong, that's on you, brothers and sisters. We just told you the truth. All right, Power Hour with Nina Turner's next. You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. And